Welcome back to another log. Today I want to discuss company structure. So ever since starting the Nonverbal Group, I've been incredibly fortunate to be embedded inside so many different companies. I get to see what some of the greatest teams look like in terms of their group cohesion, their day-to-day dynamics, how they interact, how they communicate with each other. I get to see when things are going really well, and I get to also see when things are going really bad. And you work with people that you want to strangle, and you work with people, or you work on ideas or concepts that are not powerful to you, and you can't really get on board with that mission. What it looks like when employees start off doing something that they really love, but then slowly the work becomes monotonous, and they don't really like that, and then how it affects culture and so on and so forth. So as I start to build out a more executive team and next year make some key hires, I've really been challenging my sort of understanding of culture. And you have to understand, and when I say culture, I really mean like not culture. What I'm focusing on is structure. And structure in a lot of ways will dictate culture. Like the way the military is structured is going to create a certain culture, right? Because it's very direct report, where other companies are not like that. And I've witnessed how slow some companies can actually move because of such a rigid structure. But then again, how that accountability system creates, there's positive and negatives. And I really believe that I'm exploring different operational models for how to structure teams and companies. I think I'm going in the direction of more of like a unit of 3 to 5 people that have a very diverse set of skills. I find myself being more alive and interested in working with individuals that are like usually really good in one area. So they have a specialty, but then they're good at a bunch of other things. Like I think one of the it's sort of like how a SEAL team would operate, where like everybody can shoot, everybody can do all these things, but they tend to have a specialty, something that they really specialize in. So I'm really just looking for different models and different ways. And part of this reason is because I am curious. Like one of the things the Nonverbal Group is I really, we do a lot of organizational consulting. I want to be able to try and test out different modalities to see how they work inside of my own company. I feel like there's a tendency for consultants to like come in and shift things and change things with all theory. It's they haven't really seen it done before, or they have their method that works and they keep doing that method. So for example, like if you were to come into my company as a consultant who's worked with these structures, you might say, all right, Blake, like you're gonna definitely, for what you need, you're gonna definitely need a CTO, you're gonna need a COO, you're gonna probably need a chief marketing officer, you're also gonna probably need a chief of staff, you're definitely gonna need someone to handle all of the research that you're doing. So like a chief research officer or like a director of research or something like that. You're gonna need somebody to sort of manage the video process, and it's kind of clear cut. But I'm sort of thinking about like how can you create a dynamic and how can you create a work environment that is why I became an entrepreneur. The fact that I get to work on so many different things, the fact that like I don't know what's gonna come up in my from day-to-day work. I just believe that even the most trained people and the most mission-driven people, if they're not constantly challenged, if they're not constantly put in different scenarios, if they're not learning new skills, they just burn out essentially. And so I'm really been thinking about this model for. And listen, I maybe I'll do it and it'll be a complete 100% failure, and I'll go back to a traditional CTO, CO, so on and so forth. But for now, I really want to do something different. So yeah, like if any of you have known, like I've known companies that have flat structures. I remember like one of the first companies that did this was like Gore-Tex, I think, the company that makes like the fabric that is wind resistant or whatever. Gore-Tex created a flat structure where there was no hierarchy, there was no like boss, you weren't reporting to everyone. And I don't necessarily like that, but I also don't like the rigid roles of like, you're the chief financial officer, so you're only dealing with finance. Like, well, I kind of like an 80, like not even 80-20, like a 70-30 principle, because a lot of the areas of this company are not that complex. Like I don't need a chief financial officer, and I probably won't need one for several years. I can get like a fractional CFO, somebody who comes in, reviews our books, helps us model and stuff like that, but they're not an actual core employee. And like the big thing for me is I'm trying to create this business in a way that so like Nonverbal Group has been around for a long time relative to my life. And I've had different versions of what I've liked and what I've not liked. So like I love teaching live classes. It's so important to me. Does it make the most money? No. But I can't teach live classes every single weekend. Like I love to teach it 2 to 3 times. I love speaking, but I can't speak every single weekend. Like I burn out when I do something too much. And while it increases your competency and you get better at it, it's not really what I want for my employees. I want them to be curiously engaged. I want them to be doing different things. I want them to also see different aspects of the company and really feel like they have a holistic understanding of what we're doing and all the little pieces of it. So what I'm sort of working with right now is, like hiring people that have competencies that I don't have, and then really making sure that they understand the bigger vision of the business and helping filling in those gaps. So I'm creating a new sort of organizational model for how to run a company, which is why I love being an entrepreneur. I can do that. It's my company. Like I'm not reporting to a group of investors or something that's like, this is crazy, you should do it. No, like my job is, it's almost like a responsibility to test new things as somebody who's actively consulting other people on their company and their organization. So I'm trying some stuff new. I've been writing it out, and working on the flows and how it's sort of processed. I think it's not. I don't think it's revolutionary, but I think it's like revolutionary for me, in certain terms of how I lead. I can make a longer video about this, but like from a leadership skills perspective, like on the emotional side of leadership, I believe I'm world class. Like I'm good at that. But on the like delegation and like expectations and like all that stuff, it's something I actively have to work on. So I'm sort of building out a model that works more with that. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about as my random ending here. So I've become really interested in the Star Wars books, specifically thanks to my good friend and colleague Eddie, who's like basically always been telling me about the Star Wars books, and I never really got into them, but now I've been really getting into them and reading them. And like one of the fascinating things about Star Wars is that like there's so much deeper philosophy there, specifically amongst like, when you watch those movies, it's like the Empire is bad and the Jedis are good. And when you actually read the book, you realize that there's a lot more subtlety to that. There's, the Force is this thing that different people use it for different reasons, and it's not just a battle of good and bad. The Jedi see things a certain way and the Sith see things a certain way. So I'm reading the Darth Bane series that was recommended by this guy Aiden, and it's pretty wild. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to dive into the Star Wars universe and sort of extract life lessons from Star Wars. I think I'll probably do like a large article about like personal development, Star Wars, and insights or something like that. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions or any comments about like structure or resources or anything like that, I'm curious to hear what you think has worked for you in a working environment. I'd love to hear that below.